So I've already done this today, so I kind of have to undo some of the things I've done real quick. All right. So here's the project. As we've already discussed, the project by default goes to an untitled map. That's because potentially, if we had it load to the persistent level, it would actually maybe check it out, and therefore other people couldn't edit it. And we want to make sure that we can edit it. So if we're working by ourselves and not doing a multi-user editing session, we should probably lock our thing to source control. This is the information I gave you back in week 8, I think it was, where you put in the URL for my repository, you put in your username, and then you put in your password. This labels directory, I have no idea what that is. So you can leave that field blank. When you accept settings, it'll then connect everything to the repo, so you can lock assets, and you can comment to each other when you're like, oh, I see you have this level checked out. I want to use it. Can you message? Can you release it and stuff? Maybe we could take a look at that another time when we have more time. But for right now, multi-user editing, we don't actually use source control, because what it's going to do is we're all going to be on a server. And we're actually going to be on my computer here in Virginia, and the server will actually store all actions at the same time, and then only the person who's hosting the project will actually push everything to the server. Any one of you guys, and as many guys as many of you that you want to, can actually host a server. So it doesn't have you don't have to be in Brooklyn. You don't have to be at the computer that is hosting the VPN. I'm going to host everyone here from the place I'm at right now, and every two of you can have your own server, and there'll be multiple servers on our VPN at one time. All right, so I'm going to run without source control.
Todd, would it be possible to record this?
I am recording.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we're recording. Boom. And so when we want to do multi-user editing, and I have my little list of everything I want to, my task list, we want to, first of all, everyone pulls project, and let's get to the personal settings. So if we go to project settings, which you can do here, settings to project settings, and we go down all the way to the bottom, we see some plugin settings. Okay, right here that says multi-user editing. Potentially, if you don't have the plugin enabled, we would have to enable it first. So let's just go ahead and make sure. Come to the built-in plugins and say multi-user editing. You need to say enable. It'll ask you to restart the editor. I've already done that, so we are good to go. Project settings, coming out of your bottom, and you see where it says multi-user editing. If you want the toolbar, which is this little toolbar right here, if you want to enable that one, then go ahead and say enable toolbar, which I've done. And then the only other thing you might want to do is it's going to have a representation of your screen, like in three-dimensional space, and it's going to give it a label, and you might want to give it a specific name or an avatar color. So it could be a green avatar, and you'll see the name Todd when you join in the session. That's all we do here. And then the other thing to change is right down here where it says UDP messaging. This is that UDP protocol I've been talking about that's sending pings back and forth between multiplayer sessions. Really quick and lightweight internet protocol. There's a default multicast endpoint. Okay, so project settings, UDP messaging, and then this multicast endpoint. By default, I think that some other software that I use blocks this IP, and by default I think it says 230.0.0.1:66666. If everyone who's going to join me in this multi-user session can change this number to 234. That's the only little hacking we have to do, is where it says multicast endpoint.
Should we try to be joint?
Yeah. This is a live working session. Everyone who has a Windows computer, join on the VPN to the black box. Pull the project so that we're all working on the same version. So update your project.
Mm-hmm.
Open it up. Enable the multi-user plugin. I think it's in experimental or developer actually. Developer, multi-user editing. Let it restart. Project settings. If you want to put in your own name or color on your avatar, it's not essential. It'll give you a default something or other. And then UDP settings. I'm going to put a screenshot of this onto. I'll do it again. And where's that snippet thing?
UDP messaging.
Snippets. Well, I can just add it in and you guys can see the number that I'm trying to talk about. So, week 13.
That's not on the plugin itself, right? It's on the general settings.
The it is on the project settings.
Okay.
So if you're in the editor, you go to settings, project settings, or you can go to edit, project settings here.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very bottom are things for the plugins. Multi-user editing, UDP messaging. Then I just added into Slack that we changed the first three numbers from 230 to 234. And I put that little PNG right here. All right. And we can come back to this. We'll just try to move forward. So the one thing that if you enable the toolbar, you might notice that now we have mega scans and we have these things. I know that some people have smaller screens. You might not be able to see all your little toolbar icons, or it gets a little crowded at the end. I noticed that when I was looking for this, if you go into your editor preferences, which is different from project settings, this is just like the way your editor looks. It's on a PC. It's under edit, editor preferences, right there. At the very first thing, it says use small toolbar for icons. If you switch this, it makes everything really small. So it's not so you can see everything at once. I thought that was a pretty cool trick. As long as you're comfortable with not having to see the text of everything. Anyway, not essential, just a little trick there. And so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say I want to launch a multi-user server. Now you don't have to do this. I'm doing this because I have to start the server. There's only one server per session, and I'm going to be the server. So you just watch this. You don't have to make this part. It's going to open up this little command prompt, and it's basically I'm turning my computer into a server. I think that's all I need to do. And now I can come over to multi-user browser. Right here we'll see a project called Emerging Tech. This is the one I made earlier today to test this, to make sure all this crazy nonsense works. If everyone made their own server, or I can make 100 servers, you could have a list of tons of servers, and each server could be a different game, a different project. They're basically IDs for various projects. So potentially, if you've already gotten to the step, you might even see Emerging Tech there. Now, what's important to note is this is a server I've created. This is not my project. I'm not even in this server either. I can just see that the server is there, right? So I can join multiple different servers from my computer. Should you be wanting to create your own server, you just need to say create a new session, and then you give it a name there and say, I think it's defaulted to whatever your computers you're using here. I'm going to delete that. We just can join Emerging Tech right here. So if you're on the VPN and you've changed this one number, you should be able to open up the multi-user session and see Emerging Tech. Does anyone see that?
I actually don't see the icons on the top.
So that was underneath editor preferences, and project settings, multi-user editing, and then enable multi-user toolbar button. You don't have to have the button. You can just go to Window, and then I'm sure it's down here underneath Developer Tools, Multi-User Browser.
Oh, okay, cool. I see.
Is there something that we do to start the multi-user, like to begin working on the server-hosted project?
You have to double click on the server.
Oh,
So
that's why you're saying you have to restart it.
yeah. So now Smatty's in here, Aparna's in here, and I list here's all the things that Grant and I did earlier today when we were messing around. In here, it's all being stored on the server. Now we have 3 users or 4 users, I guess, including me. And then if we go back into the levels, we can now see.
Todd,
Yeah.
it asks for restarting, so we should.
Yeah, definitely restart. Yeah, if you want to enable that toolbar button, you have to restart, so that's fine. What's important here to note is even though I'm running the server, it's not tied to me being on the editor. If my computer crashes, the server still exists. So that's a really great feature, and all the changes that are being saved to the server, not to my local computer. Now, we're all in this untitled level by default, and I'm seeing everyone joining in. We got a hodgepodge of everyone coming in, and you can see me in front of you if you go back to your editor. And you can use the arrow keys or WASD, and you can start moving around. And if you had a VR headset connected to your computer, you could just be in VR, and you would, instead of seeing a screen, you would see actually my hands, my controllers. You could see me being in VR, moving things around. Cool? So now, let's move over to the content browser, and in the very root content, there is the folder P main, or sorry, the level P main. Everyone now teleport to P main. And I'll wait for you guys to join me. That is so cool. So we don't have to be working in the same map to do this. We can be working in the same project, and everyone can go to their own maps, to their own areas. The most important thing to note is that right now we can't import any. You could import assets, but no one would see those assets. That has to be done. If you need to bring new assets into the content browser, we need to close the editor, add the assets, and then it has to be pushed to our SVN. So loading new assets, like importing new assets, won't work. That's why you need to do the pulling of all new things at the beginning of the session. And then we can do lots of things once we're here. Let me make sure I'm not skipping any steps. So UDP messaging, server's still open. So now people start grabbing things and moving them around. Cool. So I'm going to take this little material thing. I'm going to hold down Alt and drag it, and now you can see the copies. And I might be able to, since there's so many lights, I might be able to go take a light and make it a little dimmer in here, and you guys can see updated lights. Mm-hmm. This floor is this is Muhan's texture for her floor. I know because I was doing that earlier, but I can come into the assets and potentially find another material that I like. Let's say this base Marcel, and now everyone should see there's an updated material there. If I hold down Control and L, and everyone looks at the sky, you'll see that I'm moving the time of day. And it updates. So cool.
If my computer's still looking for the multi-user server, is there like something I should be doing? Or
The main thing to do is as long as you've changed this UDP messaging from 230 to 234, it should just find it.
And then you have to go to the session browser. I mean, that's what I had to do, and then click the session to join it.
Do you not see it in the multi-user browser?
No, it just says like looking for multi-user server, and it's just been loading this whole time.
And you're on the VPN?
I should be. It says connected.
Okay, unfortunately, networking gets kind of silly with this kind of stuff. So we could spend maybe time, you and I, debugging, and I
Yeah.
don't mean to leave you behind. But we're gonna move forward, and you can just like play along with me from home, and
That's
then
good.
we'll suss it out.
All
So
right, thank you.
as I see everyone moving things, that you can see it's all being added to my history. So I'm seeing all the movements here, and then there's this little column called presence. If I can't find you, or I don't know what map you're in, I can click presence, and it will zoom me in to wherever you are at. So I just found Aparna by clicking on presence. So that's cool. And then also, we have 18 people in a level. It might get a little confusing for me. I can also hide people so I don't see them if it's getting too much like a chaotic beehive in here. All right. I'm in the mood to, and again, I'm working in the persistent level, but you can obviously edit things in levels you're not in. And so if I were to maybe add a landscape, no one really sees that one yet. But if I maybe make it a little smaller, and then I say create, does anyone see the landscape yet?
Not yet.
So some things you have to
No.
actually save first. If I say save,
Ooh.
it should show up.
I see it.
Yeah, so it's propagating to you guys. And so in the same way, if I started editing this landscape, you probably wouldn't see it until I saved it. And now that it's a thing, I can move it down if I want to and adjust it and stuff. Again, we can add in our own. I don't want to. Maybe I only want to work on my own level since I'm not messing with you guys. Right now, we're all on this persistent level. If you open up your window to the levels browser, you can see that the one that's dark blue is the one that you're inside of, and I only want to work in. I'm going to stay in my lane. So I'm going to double click on streaming level or sub level Todd, and now if I add a light, it's just in my level. And that way I'm not messing around with the persistent, nor am I messing around with sorry. So it looks like Amy just made a change, and so it pushed it to me, and I was able to save it to the server. And now we can see this updated landscape. I don't know if anyone saw that, but it's screen recorded for other people to find for later on. I'm going to add in some point lights, and we can adjust the intensity and the color, and everyone's seeing this happen in real time.
So when Amy added that, it also asked me to save it. Should I save it as
Yes.
well? Or?
So any of those prompts you say yes, and that means it propagates through to you. If it's interrupting you, you can cancel it. But I'd say for right now, I'm still new to this as well. Let's go ahead and try to keep as current as possible with each other. So just go ahead and say yes, and then you can see the changes that are made, and then I can take it and move it, and you see it.
That it couldn't successfully check out what Amy did, so that's what I can.
Wait, I swear I didn't do anything. I'm not even connected onto the thing, so I don't know what happened.
Oh no, I think the something happened into a level, Amy. Someone made a change into Amy's level, and that's what it was. But also, everything is Amy's fault. Okay, so I'm still figuring all this stuff out too, but this is kind of cool. So I want to go into a couple other features that are important. Maybe not right now. We're not really dealing with any custom assets, but if you guys look at my screen, if you right-click on any of your assets in the content browser, if I go down to this new menu called multi-user, I can lock assets. And so if you're messing with something and you don't want anyone to mess around with it too, you can lock it out. It puts a little lock key on there, and no one can edit that asset they open it up. I can see it because it's my asset, but you guys can't change it. So that's cool. And then when I'm done with that, I can release the lock. And then if I've made changes, I can also look at the asset history. Instead of seeing the history of everything inside the project like you can see from the multi-user browser, I can just see the history of individual assets. Cool?
So we should probably lock our assets so that they're not like accidentally edited by people, right? I mean,
Well, people shouldn't be accidentally editing things too.
that's true.
But we can lock anyone's assets, right?
Yes, anyone can lock anyone's assets. And again, remember that everything is in version control. So I've added another level of abstraction. Everything's in version control. And while this might be saved locally, ultimately whoever's running the server will be the person who pushes it to the SVN. And you can also choose not to upload a change to the SVN. So the cloud version is king. Right now we're working on this local server, which is hosting our changes, but it doesn't have to be committed to the final project. And again, as you see, there's a history. You have your asset history. That is like this. That is the history of this project while the server is up, and you can also revert, I think, through the history of these things as well. All right. So I want to do one more thing before we end today. I want to talk about sequencer. So I already have a camera in here. Let me get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of the sequencer I already did. It's called level timeline. Or actually, no, that's what we did in class last week. Let me go ahead and open that one up. Okay. No camera cuts. All right, so this is last time. And everyone, make sure your sequencer is closed. No one has the sequencer open. Okay. Now, if I drag my screen, I have this fade out. Does anyone else see that? The answer should be no.
No.
Great.
Just firing.
That's cool. I know you're looking at two different screens at the same time.
Dog sitting?
What was that?
Sorry.
Cool. No, we're supposed to be messing around and breaking things on purpose. So I'm going to open up my sequencer now. All right. So what we're missing right now is that I had a glow on these spheres. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lower this landscape real quick. Everyone just leave it down so that we can see the glow. Okay. Now, everyone open up your sequencer. So you go up to the cinematics and open up level timeline. And did anyone else crash?
Is it supposed to crash?
No, it just crashed for me. I just wonder if anyone else crashed.
Oh. I feel like that's how you crash it.
No, this is how you crash it, guys. No. And what's important is that this, to prove a point, the server is not tied to my computer, and so or at least not tied to my editor. So you guys are still in the server, and I'm still hosting all the changes. So crashes are fine. I mean, they're annoying. So I'm screen recording this, and I can always go back to my browser, and I see the emerging text still there. I've joined it. I see all the people that are on it. Okay. And so what we want to do is we want to come back to... Did everyone open up their sequencer?
Yeah.
So there's 3 new buttons at the top of sequencer that I want you to see. And there are these multi-user buttons right next to the frames per second. And now if everyone has that first button selected, now do you see the sequencer changing? Do you see it scrubbing?
Yep. Yeah, I see it.
Yep. So now you can see how you can see my edits happening in real time when I scrub. Now with your sequencer open, will you please all select the third button? All right, so both these buttons, the first and the third button, should be selected. Okay? And with that selected, now I want everyone to
Okay,
close.
now my laptop crashed.
It's it's bound to happen with technology, and I'm sure I have I could read about it right here. What happened? And I'll take a look at it later. So with everyone selecting the first and the third button, go ahead and close your sequencer. And then what I'll do is I can actually force everyone to open their sequencer. Did that just happen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're connected like this, and we can all be editing sequencer together, like you can have multiple sequencers, right? And so what we could do is I could say, oh, let's edit this sequencer. I open mine up, and it opens up for everyone else, and everyone works in the same sequencer at the same time. And so Aparna was making a new sequencer. Did it crash when you were making the new sequencer?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, so we'll have to take a look at that. But you definitely should be able to create new sequencers.
Should I be giving the same name for the sequencer which you gave? Because I couldn't find anything on the sequencer. It was pretty blank because it was a new sequencer.
You can any naming convention's fine.
Oh.
Yeah, it just has to be no spaces. The one thing that's experimental that I haven't done is the middle button, which means that you should be able to see all sequencers at one time, even if sequencer's not open. That seems pretty buggy. it sounds pretty dangerous. So now that I have sequencer open and somebody's scrubbing it, which is perfectly fine, while you're scrubbing it, I'm going to add in a camera.
Todd, but what I'm seeing now is different from what you are seeing. I couldn't see the now it's the same. I don't know. Sometimes that's different.
Well, sometimes there's latency. So I'm going to add in a camera real quick. Create camera here called Cinema Camera Actor. And now there's a camera right there. If everyone looks up behind them, they might be able to see the camera. And when I add the camera into the sequencer, everyone should see that the camera cuts track has been added. And I'm going to put a keyframe for my transform right here. I'm going to zoom to the end, and I'm going to move the camera over the landscape, and then rotate it, and then add another keyframe. I can easily also just say, if I hit, I hold down this little key button right here, every time I make a change, it will go ahead and add a keyframe automatically. So I don't have to worry about that. All right. So if I scrub through now, here's my camera over here. I can see the camera animator. I should be able to. Let's see what happened. Okay, keyframe right here. Let's go ahead and go to the next keyframe. Next keyframe? I'm going to delete this one. Or let's just move it. One more time. Something happened. And again, you want to have good communication and make sure that everyone's talking to each other and no one's trying to steal the camera from me. Okay. So now if everyone looks up, you should see the camera moving through the sky. When I scrub. Cool?
Yeah.
And now, you see this camera cuts. If you want to see the camera that's happening, just go ahead and lock yourself in. And you can take a ride with me in my camera. And then this is how we do previews.
How do we lock ourselves in?
There's a little camera icon right there next to, says click to lock the viewport. On the camera cuts track at the very top.
Yeah, I see it.
So now you can choose to see what the camera person's doing or not, and seeing how your asset is being viewed within the camera. So you might want to reframe your camera or your asset so that you guys can make sure everything's looking good. And then pop yourself out by clicking the icon again, and then everything is saved. And it's cool if you see me. I don't know if you guys can see on my screen as I drag it around. Everyone's hitching a ride. You can see your latency. All right. And, I keep on talking about the fact that everything's being saved on my server. So there's also another button for, this is the last thing when you're wrapping up, right? We're wrapping up. We've locked everything to the viewport. There's a thing called underneath the source control. There's persist session changes. What I want to do is I want to grab all changes, everything that everyone's been making, and I want to bring it all to me because I'm hosting the server. I say persist session changes. Here's all the changes that are happening. Lock and load. Everything is successful. And then I personally can then close the project out and commit it to source control for everything to be in the cloud. So there's two different ideas of storing of changes. There's the cloud version, which is what has version control, and there's what's happening now inside of the server for this multi-user session. So this is again another great tool for collaborative editing, so that we can see what each other is doing, and this is almost like its own kind of narrative of us being gods manipulating worlds and stuff. I'm adding in that last part.
Is this brand new, you said?
Yeah. This is the new. Cool. So, hey, I finished just in time. Look at that. So I'm going to stop recording.